All right, so good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining this bright and early session this morning. My name is Gali, and I am the newly appointed director of the Institute for Scientific Information at Clarivate. What I wanted to do today is to share with you my experience at Mount Sinai. Some of you might know that before joining Clarivate, I was the Associate Dean for Libraries and Information Sciences at Mount Sinai. And as the Associate Dean, me and the team were working on some activities around bibliometrics, which I wanted to share with you today. There is going to be a chat available if you would like to ask questions or comments. And we will get to those by the end of the session. So let's begin. The title of my presentation was Librarians' Stewardship of End-User Bibliometrics. And the question is, what do I mean, right, by end-user bibliometrics? And when you look at some of the products today, such as Web of Science or Insights, most of you have noticed that there are many indicators and metrics that are available now on the end user side. So in any product, you can perform a search, you can analyze the results and use a variety of metrics that are available on the products themselves. However, the fact that there are so many metrics available doesn't mean that they all should be used at the same time. There's a need for a better understanding of the context, what are they used for, what they should be used for, and for what purposes. And I found that while I was at Sinai, that there is such a need to guide the end user on how to best utilize these metrics and how to understand them in the context of what they need, how to ask the right questions, how to guide them through the answers, and how to make these metrics a little bit more clear to researchers and clinicians, to students, and so on. So end user bibliometrics, really some examples are, for example, the beam plots that have recently been added to Web of Science. Some of you have seen those before. This is a very good example of a new metric or new visualization that was added to our product. However, as clear as it is, sometimes there's a need to explain exactly what they are, how to use them best, and how to utilize them on the end user side. Another example, if you look at the ESI, some of you have used this, of course, as in your careers. You look at all the different indicators that are there, all the metrics that are there, especially related to citations and field-weighted citations, and so on. This is another example how, when you look at all these numbers, they might seem a little confusing, but as librarians, all of us have seen this before, have utilized these before, and can really be instrumental to help our users understand what they mean and how to use them in context. Finally, one more example. Those of you who are familiar with Insights, as you know, there is a really long list of metrics available in different levels of analysis on Insights. And that's really wonderful because the more metrics are available to people, they can look at the data from different angles, they can analyze the data depending on what they need. But again, this could result in some confusion on the end user side if they don't know how to use them best, or really understand how to use them in the context of the questions that they have. And that's where librarians and my team started working on really making these more accessible, more understandable to our end users. So with all of this and the great availability, we found out that there is a need for some activities on our end to make sure that our patrons really know how to use these appropriately. So when I looked around the web while I was preparing for this session, I've noticed so many websites out there from all over the world, really, where libraries have dedicated resources and services that deal with research impact, with bibliometrics, with evaluation, and really there's so many universities and research institutions out there that have librarians in the heart of these activities. And these are just a few examples, but when I looked around, they just were everywhere. And so, you know, when I started at Sinai, I remember reading a really great article by Guppenberger that was published in 2012. The article was called "The Bibliometrics Practices and Activities at the University of Vienna." But what they've done is to really list the areas that librarians can take a leading role in this arena. And the main reasons is that we are the experts of expert users and super users of these databases, right? We use them almost every day. We know the structure of the data. We are familiar with the data itself. For example, the coverage. We are the ones that normally vendors will come to test new features because we are familiar with the development. And in context, we know how to look at all these metrics, such as the H index or citation percentiles, within the discipline that we work in as experts. And we can really guide a responsible and more informative use of these metrics because of our experience and because we are super users of these databases. Another reason, and again, this is really inspired by the article, we do know bibliographic data. We gather data, we clean data, we analyze data as a part of our daily work. If you think even of licensing, right, or collection development, those are activities where librarians do a lot of work and are familiar with the resources, with the full text, with the journals, with the books, and the actual content that is indexed in product. We're also aware, right, of the limitations that data sets have. We know the weaknesses and strengths of different databases. We are aware of where a data coverage is involved, in what way, and we have a really in-depth understanding of the literature that is captured in these databases. And again, in the contents of journal selections, indexing, disciplinary coverage. This is a part of our jobs, our everyday jobs, actually, that make us really well-versed in the bibliographic data. And let's not forget that bibliometrics in itself, what does it do? It analyzes this type of bibliographic data. That's what we do. So as expert users and as a community, that is well-versed in the bibliographic data, I think we have a leading role, or can have a leading role in this arena. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about the librarians' roles as educators. At Sinai, when I started at Sinai, they already had a series of workshops and seminars relating to use of databases, how to write papers, etc. And what we've done through the years was to expand and build on what was already there as infrastructure, to expand our workshops and our seminars to include topics that relate to bibliometrics, to research evaluation, to research impact, and so on. So we offered scholarly communication support across numerous topics. We had it built on different smaller topics, so it's easier to understand. And it ranges from journal-related metrics, selections, publishing, evaluation, analysis, and so on. These sessions were built as short 30-minute sessions on smaller topics. We offer them before the pandemic, we offer them in person, and during the pandemic, we offer them quickly online using Zoom. And that proved to be really, really successful because our patrons could just join really quickly a short session on journal metrics, or how to use Web of Science, or how to use Insight, or how to publish, how to submit journal papers, and so on, really quickly. And those proved to be very, very successful. We could offer many of those as we would like, and we continue to do so even now that patrons have got back on campus. And as educators, we already have the skills and the ability to build new sessions, and we already know how to teach, because again, this is a part of what we do. And so when I think of what it is, what are the areas that librarians and what we've done at Sinai is really around these 5 activities. And what I have here, again, are great examples from all over, from libraries all over, that have been using different media to inform, to promote, support, educate, and collaborate with patrons around bibliometrics topics. So, for example, we have flyers or any other educational materials that can be collected and available for download on website, promoting, right, responsible use, promoting the use of metrics within a department, within the institution, using videos, webinars, and supporting activities within the institution, getting involved in the way that they evaluate performance, whether it's research impact or for promotions and tenures. We really became a part of the conversation. We were approached by the deans or the department chairs for our opinions. We were asked to gather the data and help them analyze the data depending on the purpose of their activity. Of course, I talked a little bit about the education, but that really proved very, very successful. 30 minutes, smaller topics, available online. We have recordings that we uploaded to YouTube, so it's there and available to everyone. going and offering these sessions through the years. And of course, collaborating with our patrons, really asking them what it is that they would like to see, what it is that they would like to learn. We did that with post-webinars surveys and expanded on our educational offerings and any type of promotions based on their feedback. And then, of course, inform everyone as to what they have available to them, whether on the web, on our site, and in person, of course. And now I want to share with you some really interesting projects that I was fortunate enough to lead and be a part of together with Clarivate. And that was before I joined Clarivate. I was at Mount Sinai, but we had a few projects that were very unique. We wanted to explore some specific areas to us. And so I don't know how many of you know, but Clarivate has a group of consultants and consulting services that allow you to scope your research, get the data, and have them help with analyzing it and putting it together for your own purposes. And here I wanted to share with you some of the most exciting projects that I've collaborated with the consulting services at Clarivate prior to joining. So the first project that I've done with the consulting services was to really look at diversity within Mount Sinai. And the idea was to try and identify where our researchers and postdocs and faculty members, where do they come from in the world, and see based on discipline, department, what is the level of diversity that we have at Sinai. This study was very, very well received, was very insightful. And the way that we worked with Clarivate was for them to collect the affiliation data for our faculty members based on faculty profiles, and then analyze the affiliations, their first affiliations before they came to Sinai. That was really an exciting project. We were able to identify most of our faculty who came from around the world, and we managed to also map them according to journal categories and disciplines. We presented this to the Sinai leadership. It was quite interesting. And one of the things that came out of this was really purposeful recruiting and trying to scope talent from around the world and bring those talented people into the institution once the results were presented to them. Another great project that I worked on with the Clarivate consulting team was a gender report. I'm sure most of you online know that there's some gender-related reports out there and some methodologies that have been developed in order to find gaps in gender in different disciplines. And for Sinai, I really wanted to do this only for us, for the institution itself, and try to present to leadership again, what is the balance between males and females within our institution based on the departments, but also looking at publications and impact over time. And the consulting team, the consulting services were able to retrieve our publications. They used name sorts in order to predict male or female names, which was quite successful. Together, we looked at the data, we cleaned the data together, and then we analyzed it together, and the consultant was able to show us really, really clearly in which disciplines we have a gap, the number of publications, but also the impact of these publications, and really compare output to impact within different departments. This again was quite successful. For those of you who don't know, but Mount Sinai is really active in promoting women, minorities. They have a whole department dedicated to this effort. So this research came in as really good component and an informative component to these efforts, which was quite impactful. Another project that I've done with the consulting team was to look at systematic reviews and their impact over time. For those of you out there that come from the medical arena, we all know that there's an enormous growth in systematic reviews, especially during the pandemic. There was a lot of requests coming into the library for support for systematic reviews. And my colleague, Rachel Pinotti, and myself were wondering, okay, all these requests that are spiking, but what is the impact of these reports? Do they really make a difference? And again, I contacted Clarivate. They were able to retrieve over 100,000 systematic reviews from Web of Science, and the consultant assisted us in analyzing not only the output, but also the impact of these systematic reviews. We've published this research recently, and I think it was quite informative, especially for medical librarians who are wondering about the increase in systematic reviews, requests, and publications. Finally, I did another project again with Clarivate, which was a mobility study. The purpose of this was to show and highlight our female faculty members at Sinai. We did this special report for Women's Day. And we used, again, the affiliation for faculty members, female faculty members, with the help of consulting, really to see where they come from. And we had this really beautiful visualization to show where our female faculty came from. We had interviews with them, and we published these interviews and some advice from these faculty members, which are quite famous. We had them interviews, and we had a quote from them. We put it together in a beautiful booklet and distributed that across Sinai. And that was another really, really successful venture together with Clarivate Consulting Services, which was very, very well received. So how can we help? So whether it is supporting you with your specific institutional research, if you would like to do custom reports, custom analytics, the consulting team is there for you. Joshua Schnell, and his email is right here. All you have to do is email him and get in touch with that team. Excellent team of analysts that really know the data and are really wonderful to work with. We at ISI welcome any questions or any requests for support, whether it's for education or understanding metrics or anything at all. You can email the ISI clarivate.com. And with that, I would thank you for joining. And if there are any questions for me or just comments, I'll be happy to take them now. And thank you all. All right. Anyone has any comments maybe, or would like to share their own experiences with bibliometric education or activities? Thank you for those who commented on the presentation. I'm sure it will become available, and I'm here to assist if you'd like to learn a little bit more. I've been with Clarivate almost 3 months, so this presentation was really built on my recent experience at the library at Mount Sinai. For those of you, someone asked. So pretty new to Clarivate, but been with Sinai for 6.5 years prior. Somebody, Elizabeth, if you're out there, you can type your questions. You can type your questions right in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer where you are right now. Somebody asked about the changes to Clarivate website. James, would you like to explain a little bit more? We were very excited at Sinai when we saw the new Web of Science coming through. We had a session with the Web of Science training team, and they're constantly building and improving the product. Oh yes, I think you mean, yeah, I can see your question about the journal citation reports. It's too early for me to, to comment on that. There's a wonderful editorial team that is supporting the efforts around the journal citation report. And what I used to do is just contact Clarivate directly and work with them if I needed any help or if I needed any clarification. There's a lot of work being done now over time. And so the team is really there to help. There's also a presentation today about the new features of Web of Science, if you're interested. Elizabeth, thank you for your question. I love it. So if for those who are out there, there's a question about how did we teach graduate students how to use metrics? So what we've done, we've done a couple of things. We had a series of 12 seminars, short seminars for graduate students. And really what we've done was to focus on them and explain to them how to promote themselves, their research, what they do, and show them how it's been translated into metrics. For graduate students who are just starting or maybe don't have any publications yet, we were looking at Altmetrics, teaching them, how to use Twitter and Instagram and other online platforms, social platforms, to promote their activities and have a sense of how to afterwards promote their research. If you'd like, you can go to the Sinai, Halevi Library Sinai at Sinai website. We have some workbooks that we prepared for them. They're free. You can download them off of our LibGuides. And it's really about how to promote yourself. At first, just your activity, your lab activity, anything like that, your research activity, and then build their confidence up to promote their publications once they have them. So it was a really successful series. It was a part of a course that we built, but then we offered the series on a shorter, sort of 30 minutes seminars. There's another question in the queue about more metrics in Clarivate. If you look at insights, you will see that there's an extensive list of metrics that are now available on Insights, for example, really looking into output, but impact as well. I agree with you that the impact factor is really useful for librarians. It is and was always a guiding, right? A guiding tool for us for collection development. However, I see the impact factor very helpful for scholars as well, especially when they try to decide where to publish. That's where it became really, really useful, because for them, there's of course the very famous, very successful journals that are out there that everybody know, but there's so much more. And the impact factor really helps scholars see a bigger picture, look at journals that they might not be aware of, but they have very good impact, and help guide the next publication and the next submissions. So it is important for us as librarians, of course, but I found that with some guidance, scholars can use the impact factor really successfully to decide where to submit, and as a tool for that. Does that answer your questions? Thank you, James. I appreciate your kind words. Thank you all. I'm going to wait a couple of more minutes, and before we close this session, I want to thank you all for joining so early. And please email me with any further questions. All right, so I'm going to close this session now. Thank you all for joining. And as a reminder, there's a presentation today at 3:30 about all the new features in Web of Science. So please join that meeting, plenty to show you. And I'll see you all soon. Thank you for your attention, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Bye now.